Let's start with two related concepts, soulmates and soul contracts. The notion of soulmates is somewhat more popular and widely known than soul contracts, but what links them is reincarnation. Reincarnation is another widely known but widely misunderstood concept or notion. This is what we're going to be covering today in this video. Let's start with reincarnation. What reincarnation isn't about is transmigration of souls from one body to another. This is just a fantasy of ego. What you have is life, death, and love or connection, which are the three inseparable aspects of existence. Everything is recycled. There is no migration of soul from one physical body to another because spirit exists through a physical body, not within it. There are numerous other examples of reincarnation, other than the interface between life and death. Such examples include breathing, the circadian rhythm and sleep, the menstrual cycle, and the replacement of biological cells which make up the body. The notion of reincarnation as transmigration of a soul from one body to another is just the ego perspective which craves permanence and continuity. So, without getting into the complex subject of reincarnation, karma and natural law, it's important to understand that life after death is what you are living now, not some alternative version of reality, and that life and death is an interface. Reincarnation is essentially consciousness going into energy or physical form over and over and over again. Energy requires consciousness to exist. This is why existence always goes hand in hand with non-existence. Behind your energy and physical form is spirit. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, that claimed that there have only been 100 billion souls in existence. There's 8 billion people on the planet right now. What I'm trying to point out to you here is that, just as you have no idea how many times in your life your physical body has completely reincarnated itself, you have no idea how many times you have been alive and experienced death. But I don't really want to get into reincarnation, because this video is all about soulmates and soul contracts. So, for the sake of argument, let's assume we have been alive a few 100,000 times, or we have gone through a few 100,000 incarnations. Let's start with soulmates. The popular notion of soulmates is that when it comes to love there is someone for every person. This is a highly romanticized notion of love. In other words, this is an illusion. In order to believe this, you also have to believe that you are incomplete as a human being, which is not true. All life starts from a seed or an egg. Everything in that seed or egg contains everything necessary for a complete incarnation or life cycle. You are born complete with everything you need for an incarnation. What soulmates actually are is something completely different. In order to properly understand both soulmates and soul contracts for what they really are, we need to go back to the process of physical death. I'm referring to the end-of-life process. It's that end stage of your life when you understand that you are physically in decline and not long for this world. This is where the major regrets in your life manifest. You spent too much of your life working, or you worked too hard. You didn't give certain people chances. You didn't enter into a certain relationship. Another major regret which will manifest in, say, 30 years is that you spent too much of your life online. This will start manifesting when the current millennial generation become elderly. Nothing you will be able to do in this situation, but just accept what has happened and let it go. See, holding onto, clinging, and trying to curate your ego too much comes with a tragic price. But the point I want to make here is that, no matter who you are, how you live, or even what you have achieved in life, you will die with a certain amount of unfinished business. This is how we go through the processes of bereavement and grief. Human beings die every minute, but we don't experience bereavement and grief with every death. We experience bereavement, grief and mourn only those we have a connection to or love. So we come back to those three inseparable aspects of existence: life, love and death. We don't stop loving someone just because they die. We don't forget them. The connection always remains, but once where there was physical presence and a certain amount of intimacy, we are left with a sense of absence, that someone important is missing from our lives, leaving behind a space that nobody else can fill. So, assuming that we've lived through hundreds of thousands of different incarnations, we are all living with a certain amount of unfinished business with various people from all these incarnations. We don't know who they are, because they all have different physical forms, and each have their own record of past incarnations. We don't even know the nature of the unfinished business. We could have been in relationships with them. They might have been relatives in previous incarnations. They could have hurt us, maybe even murdered us or caused our deaths. The possibilities are infinite. So this is where we come to both soul mates and soul contracts, which both arise out of all this unfinished business between different incarnations. This is often believed to be karma, which may be true, but then again it may not be true. Karma is essentially physical existence as it unfolds, which involves memory, action, reaction, and interaction. But many people confuse karma with morality and also karma with cause and effect, but neither morality nor cause and effect are part of karma. The basis of existence is consciousness, which lies behind physical existence. Karma and reincarnation go hand in hand, and you simply cannot reduce life or living existence down to concepts such as morality nor cause and effect. Far from being a romanticized other half guaranteeing you a life of love and living happily ever after, soul mates are people who appear in your life spontaneously, make a connection, and either clear up some unfinished business, make your life easier, teach you something, or leave you with some wisdom. Often they leave your life just as spontaneously as they appeared. Therefore, a soul mate can be a friend, a neighbor, an employer, a complete stranger, or anyone really. Some people call soul mates angels or even guardian angels, which, while not as precise or specific, also works. Soul mates generally don't stay around in your life, which probably has more to do with the mysteries of the subconscious more than anything else. You are in a different incarnation with a different physical form and identity, so too has the soul mate, which means that the connection is more probability than an actuality. But such connections exist, but my point is you're unlikely to know who in your life is a soul mate until after the fact. Therefore, if you're going through life looking for a soul mate, more than likely you're wasting your time. So we move on to soul contracts. Life is all about relationship. Continuing on in our awareness of reincarnation and karma, otherwise known as natural law, we are all going through life with a certain amount of unfinished business. This is something I mentioned earlier. In life we are here for two things. The first thing we are here for is the direct experience of life, but going through direct experiences ourselves does not necessarily lead to a significant or fulfilling life. None of us are here all by ourselves in life. Self-sufficiency is a comforting notion only for the story of the ego. We also have to connect to other and go through various experiences while being in relationship to other. Sometimes there are experiences we can only access through being in relationship with other. A fairly obvious example is sexuality. It's almost impossible to figure out your sexuality without connecting or being in relationship with other. Another fairly obvious example of developing experience in relationship is work and occupation. You are here experiencing life. You have been socially conditioned to develop an ego and identity. This ego and identity needs labels and a story, a history if you prefer, so you have to figure out what to do with your life. You have to figure out how you're going to connect to others. You have to figure out how you're going to go through the experiences of life you feel you need to go through. This is all part of karma and reincarnation. So we come to the interesting phenomenon or conundrum of relationships. Existence goes hand in hand with non-existence. If you look around you, no matter where you are, you will see physical objects, physical forms connected to space. Space can be seen as emptiness, nothing, but it is actually what connects everything physical into a relationship and environment. While we are conditioned to believe that physical or material form matters and is important, it's also true that in some cases it is the space which is important rather than the physical form. Your home may look nice, but it is the space inside your home which is important. A cup or bowl is important for the space inside the cup or plate. Space also becomes really important when it comes to clothing and shoes. If there is too little or too much space in your shoes or clothing, neither will fit and you won't be able to wear them. Just a few examples where space matters much more than physical form. So when we come to relationships between people or between people and animals, both existence and non-existence become significant, or rather the physical and the metaphysical. Just like space connects different physical forms into an environment, the connection through consciousness between two people in a relationship becomes important because it is the connection which defines the existence of the relationship. But simply because we have physical form, then our relationships also must have some physical form, because the physical form defines the relationship. A sexual relationship is not the same as a friendship, nor is it the same as a business relationship or a relationship between an employer and employee. It is the physical identity of a relationship which defines its boundaries, and it is the boundaries which sustain the relationship and provides the opportunity for experiences through the relationship. Therefore, in addition to the connection which forms the basis of the relationship, there is also the need for experiences through the relationship, and this is what not only gives a relationship its definition, but also gives the relationship its ritualistic or transactional nature based on physical desires, needs, and expectations. You need this, I need that. You want this, I want that. Beyond the metaphysical connection, there is usually a subtle dynamic or mechanics of the relationship. While certain relationships, such as work or between landlord and tenant, the dynamic is clear, as is the mechanics of the relationship. You pay rent, you get somewhere to live. You take on certain responsibilities in a job role, you get paid for it. These are very clear relationships. But when it comes to personal relationships, which involve intimacy and therefore are deeper relationships, the boundaries, dynamics, and mechanics become fuzzy and sometimes confusing. For example, there's the fuzzy boundaries between a friendship and a primary or loving relationship, a loving relationship and a sexual relationship, or, taking this to another level, an alternative lifestyle or kinky relationship, and a normal, plain, vanilla relationship. Many people ruin a good friendship by trying to turn it into a primary relationship. Similarly, two people can take a connection and develop a primary relationship, even getting married, and the relationship can turn toxic or abusive and even change the whole nature of someone's life or perspective. A very good example of this is contained in the songs of the rock band Marillion, which are often sung from the perspective of a man past a divorce or broken relationship and estranged from his children. The songs are about past relationships from a man's perspective. So, moving towards soul contracts, just as there's a relationship between space and physical objects in any relationship, the consciousness of the relationship is equivalent more or less to its karma, or the physical definitions of the relationship. Desire is a manifestation of the consciousness in the relationship, and the levels of conscious awareness in both people become blended into one, and this one is the consciousness of the relationship. Out of this consciousness in the relationship or connection is a certain karma which you take on when you enter into the relationship. This is the soul contract. The basis of the soul contract is the connection between you and another person, and the karma from the relationship so as to maintain that connection are the conditions of the soul contract. A soul contract has terms and conditions just like any other regular contract. You can also break a soul contract by not addressing the karma of the relationship, or through betrayal or cheating, or deceiving your partner. A successful soul contract is one which is of benefit to both people in a relationship, and which contributes both to their conscious awareness and life experience. Soul contracts don't just exist between human beings, but exist with all living beings. If, say, you adopt a cat or a dog as a pet, you enter into a soul contract with that cat or that dog. It's important to understand that a need for a soul contract is part of your karma for this specific incarnation. We all go through life needing to be in certain relationships with people, so as to develop or go through the experience of that type of relationship. But sometimes part of your karma requires a relationship with a cat or a dog. The experience of a relationship with a dog or a cat is usually different from a relationship with another human being. So, going through life or going through a specific incarnation, we find that we need to go through various experiences, and we also seek to enter into various relationships and thus enter into soul contracts. Sometimes we break soul contracts because perhaps we don't have the necessary conscious awareness or the life experience, or simply through our own ignorance. Similarly, we can have soul contracts broken because the other person lacks the conscious awareness or life experience. As I've stated previously, we are all going through life with a certain amount of unfinished business, either from this incarnation or from previous incarnations. I'm just giving you fairly superficial insight into soul contracts and soulmates, so you can perhaps see the connection between the two, and perhaps see how they fit in with karma and reincarnation. I'm trying not to get into spiritual guides or soul contracts which extend across multiple incarnations or involve multiple connections, because I'm trying to keep things simple. Some people can act as your spiritual guide, just as you can provide spiritual guidance towards others. I go a bit deeper into this in another video about the Jivatman, soul, spirit and shadow. But I just wanted to put out a relatively short video to clear up confusion about soulmates and soul contracts, which is a part of reincarnation and karma. You are born complete. You do not need an eternal soul mate or twin flame. This is because after hundreds of thousands of different incarnations, you've probably either been related to everyone else or been in a relationship with them. I will leave you with that thought.